Okay, so we are live. It is, what is today? Friday already? Yep, Friday, February the 2nd, 2024. The current time as I'm recording this is 3:34 in the afternoon. And we've got another Masterverse figure to open. And this is new Eternia Man-E Faces. So as you can see, I found this one marked down at Walmart, was only $17. So not like a huge discount, like compared to some of the stuff I found at Walmart lately, where I've gotten some like really good deals on clearance stuff. But still, it's a few bucks off. Can't complain about that too much. So there's the artwork on the back that we can see, from man to robot to monster, as they said on the old commercial. So, and he's got some other masks over here, so we'll discuss that some. And if we look at the portrait on the side, we can see him with the skull and the mask. And is that Keldor? I don't know. Looks like Keldor to me. So, but the skull is not Skeletor because it's just a plain white skull, not like a yellow and green skull. So, and then I don't know who the purple mask guy is. It doesn't really say on the back, because we'll go ahead and read the bio while I'm at it. When Castle Grayskull shattered New Eternia, the mind of an adventurer shattered with it, now known as Man-E Faces, his curse forces him into the faces of many beings, from human to monster to robot, each with its own memory and agenda. Little does he know, the combined memories of his many faces. Hey, many faces! I bet that's why he's called Man-E Faces, because many faces. See? Wow! I just got that. Little does he know the combined memories of his many faces are the map to restoring Eternia to glory. But we can see the cross-cell artwork here. We have Pighead, Shadow Weaver, Man-E Faces himself, and the Sorceress. I got one other figure from this assortment. Which one is it? You're going to have to find out later, because I'm only opening one today. So let's go ahead and cut the tape at the top here, because I think that's the easiest way to get these out. And again, it's that sort of, plain blue background that we have on the Masterverse packaging, but with various symbols and stuff sculpted into it. Fades to black towards the bottom, so we can really only make out the symbols on the very top of the package. But we can see, like, there's the Horde symbol on there, and a few others. The Havoc staff, the head of the Havoc staff. What looks to me kind of like the Netflix He-Man show, but they're all kind of layered over each other. So, and then he comes out rather easily there. And then you can look at Man-E Faces out of the package. Now, I did do, I never got the Classics Man-E Faces. So this is one of those that I'm happy to have a Masterverse version, so that that can kind of scratch that itch a little bit. I'm not going to be able to say which is better between this one and the Classics one. So you can tell me which one you think is better in the comments. I have a feeling that the Classics one would edge out the Masterverse version. Although I'm sure the Masterverse version, we're going to find he's pretty cool as we open him up. I do have the Club Grayskull, the Filmation style Man-E Faces. And that one's pretty good, but it doesn't quite have the detail like the Classics version would have had, obviously, with it being the Filmation version or this version even. So here we have a little case with the extra masks in it. And you can see it's got like an eyeball sculpted in the front. And the actual eyeball part of it is, you can see the eyelid is matte like the rest of the case, but the actual eyeball is kind of glossy. So that's kind of neat. And it looks like there's some pegs on the back of the case. So I'm guessing it'll act as a backpack and also a handle so you can carry it around. And all these masks seem rather firmly on here. I'm guessing they come off so you can swap them out on the figure. but they do seem kind of firmly on here. So I'll deal with that later. Also, this is really stiff. It's obviously supposed to close, but I'm having to put a little bit of effort into it, and it did put some stress marks on the side there where the hinge is. That's only to be expected. I'm not complaining about that. I'm just noting that it happened. So, and then he's got 2 extra hands, both of which are closed fists, and they are kind of a grayish, dark blue plastic. I don't know how well they're going to match up with the rest of the figure, but I guess we'll find out, won't we? And then he's posed in that kind of typical Masterverse way where they kind of put the weapon in his hand, but it's not really in its hand. So we'll go ahead and pull that out separately. And this looks like a pretty good replication of the gun from the original Manny Faces figure. I think it's a little larger, as it probably should be because the figure himself is a little larger. One of the things that I noted about the Club Grayskull one was his pistol was rather small. That's not a metaphor. Don't be reading into what I say. It's not an anal G. It's I'm literally talking about the size of his gun, not the size of his gun. I don't know nothing about that. He's wearing pants, so we can't tell. All right, kind of armored sort of pants. So he does have a lot more detail to him than the Club Grayskull figure, which is what I would want. And he's actually got a knob on top of his head. So there he is in his robot, and there he is the monster. And the monster looks good. It could look a little more ugly, have a little more detail to it, but it looks fine. Robot looks great. He's got a lot of detail to him, and unlike the original figure, where it was a light blue paint job with some silver on there, but this is like metallic colors, so it's like a kind of silvery metallic blue. It's more on the silver side of it, but it's got like a blue tinge to it, and some metallic purple on the edge there. And seems like it turns better this way than the other way. The other way seems like it gets kind of caught up and is a little more stiff. And then there's the human form with the orange skin, even though I can only think about one human being with orange skin. But let's not talk about him. Don't get sidetracked onto that guy. That guy gets enough attention. He wants to live rent free in your head. That's his motivations. So let's just talk about this orange skinned guy. Oh man, I was hoping maybe the helmet would turn, so that way you could pose his head a little bit more. But it seems like it's on there kind of solid. It is a separate piece though, and you can see like there's some little orange notches cut out, and that's reminiscent of the original figure where it had that sort of like that same sort of pattern to the bottom of the helmet, where it met the orange of the breastplate. And this is definitely an orange breastplate. There is some ambiguity on the original figure as to whether or not the orange stuff is flesh, like his actual skin, or if it's some sort of outfit. And I would think it would all be supposed to be his skin, since his face is orange. He's maybe wearing something like Batman Beyond kind of mask or something like that. But it seems to me like his face should be that should be like his skin color. So it's kind of weird he would have armor that's the same color as the rest of his skin, but here we are. So I think that's why in a lot of like the classics figures and later, they tend to make like at least parts of this breastplate the same color as the rest of his helmet. Like these bits where you can see where the hose is attached to him, and the collar piece of his helmet / breastplate, all that stuff. Basically everything from these kind of pink tubes up would be that same dark blue color as the rest of his helmet, and not orange. But this one hews more back to the original figure where all that stuff was orange. As strange as it might be to imagine him wearing armor that's the same color as his skin, I'm pretty sure that's what he's doing. But then you look at his tummy and he's got a belly button there. So that would seem to imply that's his actual skin again. Who knows? You know, that's the great thing about some of these Masters of the Universe characters is there's a lot left to the imagination. And I think you are the person who really makes these decisions. And you decide what Manny Faces is and is not. He's got some writing on his backside there, like just at the base of his spine, like a little copyright tramp stamp, 2022 Mattel, 1186 MJ, comma 1, comma NL, Maiden, Vietnam, HL845, or is it HLB45? It's kind of hard for me to tell. I don't know. It's probably not important. That's probably just some kind of legal mumbo jumbo. So, they don't get sued or whatever. So let's see. His helmet does come off. And then you can see his head underneath is this kind of like trifecta with all these masks stuck on there. And the masks seem like they're rather firmly on this guy. But I was able to get one off. And we can see that it attaches with these two little holes, and there's two little pegs on the back of the mask. And the thing that it plugs into looks kind of vaguely like a skull. So I suppose that's some kind of inside joke as to that would be his skull. But let's go ahead and we'll see if we can get one of these masks out of the case. And that way we can, reaching for a tool, that way we can go ahead and see how it looks like when we put the masks on. So I'm going to go ahead and pull off the Keldor mask. I think it looks like Keldor anyway. And it looks like this is, of all the colors to mold this in, it looks like it's molded in like a Caucasian skin tone, which is weird because none of these masks are a Caucasian skin tone. Even his human mask is orange, because like the rest of his skin. So I don't know why they picked Caucasian of all colors to mold this in. I would presume, we'll find out in a minute, I would presume the rest of these masks are all molded in the same color. But even then, if I was going to pick one color to mold him in, I would have picked white, because the flesh part on this mask face is white, and the skull is kind of like, I called it white earlier, but it's really more of a very light gray, kind of an off-white. So we'll go ahead and plug the Keldor head in there. And now that we got that plugged in, let's go ahead and pop the helmet back on him and see what he looks like when he's Keldor. So there we go. So that's how that works. Now, I'm kind of a traditionalist when it comes to Manny Faces. So I tend to not use the extra masks too much. I tend to just keep the default man, robot, monster faces. Oh, and we can see the thing that it pegs into on the mask in the case. Again, kind of vaguely skull-shaped. I presume it's intended to look like a skull, because I don't know how you'd make something look like that much like a skull. By the way, the tool I used, it's a spoon. Sometimes the simplest tools work best, and it was good to pry it out. I use this spoon oftentimes to when I'm pulling out arms from G.I. Joe classified figures. I'll heat it up with a hairdryer and then pop it out with a spoon. I found that's the easiest way to do that. So it looks like, if you look there, you can see a little bit of that Caucasian flesh there, like I was talking about. On the mask head, I don't know what character that is supposed to be. I don't recognize it. So if anybody recognizes it, let me know in the comments, and I'll probably feel like a complete idiot once I realize who it was supposed to be. Oh yeah, that guy. It might be the same shade of orange, and maybe the blue just made it look kind of Caucasian. That would make more sense to me. I can see a little bit more of it here, and it looks like it might be that shade of orange. But yeah, so that's the skull face. I might want to repaint the skull face so it looks more like Skeletor. Because I don't know why you would have a skull face for a mask in a Masters of the Universe line and have it not be Skeletor. You know what I mean? So I'm going to go ahead and put the monster face back on there. Because, like I said, I like to leave it in its default form. So there's a couple of different origins of Manny faces out there. I think in the Filmation cartoon, I don't think they ever really explained why he's a Manny faces, a man of many faces. So, but they did have where he was terrorizing the widgets, and eventually he becomes a good guy, but not after bullying the widgets for a long time because he felt like a freak. Now, in the mini comics, and of course we all know the mini comics is my personal favorite continuity. And my personal favorite origin for Manny Faces also, he was an actor that Skeletor put a curse on him that turned him into a monster. And then when he was in his monster form, he could control Manny Faces and had him kidnap Teela. Now, Manny Faces was known for playing many characters in his acting career. And you would see him doing these one-man shows, and he had these little masks on sticks, and he would hold the mask up to his face, I guess, when he was playing a different character. But he was still wearing this kind of armor with this funky helmet and everything, even before he became Manny Faces. I don't know why. I always thought that this outfit looked kind of like a space suit, and this was like an astronaut helmet. I guess the kid could imagine like a glass faceplate being over his, his face. But yeah, the original design of Manny Faces was not as technological looking at this. It was more of an Egyptian pharaoh kind of look. And I believe he was going to have blue skin, and the armor was going to be like gold, I think was going to be how that was set up. I don't know why they changed the color scheme of it. Maybe they thought the blue skin was too close to Skeletor, and they just done Faker. So, do we really want to do another blue guy? Let's make him orange. And to add to kind of the confusion of it, in the cross-cell artwork and in the original mini comic, Manny Faces was colored the same Caucasian color as all the rest of the characters. So who knows what character? Why they went with orange in the final figure. Now, when they did the classics version, and this is one area where I would say I like the Masterverse version better, actually. And I think I mentioned this in my my unboxing of the Club Grayskull version too. Is with the classics version, they kind of decided to split the difference. So he was still kind of orangish, but it was more on the Caucasian side of it. And this one airs much more on the orange side of it. And certainly the Origins version, it was a much brighter orange too. But that one was kind of a more yellowy sort of orange. So none of the other figures replicate really the kind of dull orange color like the original figure was. All of them seem to be like either a brighter shade of orange or a more natural Caucasian tone than the dull orange that was on the original figure, but none of them seem to replicate it except for the Club Grayskull version, which was trying to match the colors of the Filmation cartoon as best as possible. And of course, Filmation was trying to match the original figure as best as possible. So oddly enough, of all of them, I think the Club Grayskull figure is the most accurate in terms of color scheme to the original figure. However, I think this one is probably more accurate to the original figure in terms of sculpting than that one. And I can't really comment too much on the classics version, because like I said, I don't really have the classics version, but a friend of mine had it a while ago, so I am pretty familiar with it, but I don't really have it to compare, you know what I mean? So let's have a look at the figure, like really look at the figure. So we see that he's got these kind of pink hoses here. And the original color, the original figure, I want to say they were more of like a magenta kind of color. but they're really bright here. So to me, these are definitely pink hoses and not magenta hoses. And if you do want to call them magenta, it's definitely on the pink side of magenta. So, but I think it looks good. It stands out pretty well against the orange and the dark metallic blue. And this is a metallic blue. It does have a sheen to it, but it's kind of more of a dull, flat metallic, if that makes any sense. And like I was saying about the hands, where it's the kind of softer plastic here, you can see it's got a little bit more of a gray tone. But on his boots, it definitely is more of a much more vibrant shade of blue. So I guess they use a different kind of plastic on the arms than what they used on the. No, I see what it is. Okay. So on the arms, it's painted, which I kind of figured it would be painted on the lower parts of the arms. But now I'm kind of wondering if the upper parts of the arms, are those painted? Or the shoulders painted? I can't tell if the shoulders are painted or if because they do match the armor on the rest of the arms. So maybe they painted the shoulders just to make sure that all the arms would match. But you can see that like the trunks, where it's a harder kind of plastic, and the boots, those are a little closer to blue, and then they're a much brighter, more vibrant blue than the gloves and the shoulder armor and all that stuff. Man, strange. I don't know. Blaster is like really big, but I think that this is more how the blaster was proportioned with the original figure than the Club Grayskull one was, and the Origins one. Come to think of it, I think his blaster was kind of small, but fits in his hand nicely. We can get some good poses out of that. Unfortunately, you can't turn his head, like I said, because I was really hoping that head would turn, but it doesn't. Because sometimes with these newer, like I think with the Origins one, you can turn the helmet on the head, so that was kind of cool. So and unlike the Filmation one, where most of the thighs were pretty clean, and it just kind of looked like maybe he was wearing like thigh high leather boots. These do have the armory texture to them. You can see it's raised a bit. So he is definitely wearing some armored boots. And one feature that I noticed about this blaster that's kind of neat that none of the other ones had is you can see there's a little peg on the back, and he does have those holes on the back, so you can put the pistol on his back. So that's kind of neat. I like that. That's a nice touch. But of course, he's got two pegs on the back that I noticed on the case earlier, so you can also stick the case on his back if you prefer. But it looks like you can only do one or the other. Like, it doesn't look like there's any way to clip the case onto the figure without, and the gun at the same time. It doesn't look like there's any way for the gun to clip on the case or vice versa. Although there might be, maybe you could stick it in this little slot here. It doesn't look like it though. Doesn't seem to want to be cooperating that way. It would be nice if maybe they put a hole onto the case so you could have him carry the gun on the back of the case. Have him like some way to carry that around. Maybe kind of pinch it in between the handle. So, but he can also carry the case by hand if you want to put the gun on his back. So let's go ahead and put the case in his hand so we see what that looks like. So there he is carrying that. But that does bring to mind another one of my favorite characters from another one of my favorite 80s toy lines. And I think you all know who I'm talking about from G.I. Joe, Zartan, the Master of Disguise. The guy I liked well enough, I used to cosplay as him sometimes. But he had a backpack that he carried his masks around with. So yeah, they could have that in common. So yeah, this is a really good figure, and I'm happy to have it in my collection. Like I said, I really liked the Club Grayskull version, and I felt like that did scratch my itch as far as having a Manny Faces figure in this scale, but I do think this one kind of is a little more what I would want in terms of like the detail and everything like that. Let's go over his articulation real quick because I haven't really done that. So of course, technically he does have head articulation. You can turn his head, but that's the gimmick, is you're supposed to be able to turn his faces around. So I don't know if that really counts as an articulation, but I would count it as an articulation if you could turn his helmet. But like I said, you can't turn his helmet, unfortunately. Arms go up about that far, go down about that far, rotate all the way around. This joint does seem a little tight though. All the way around. He's got the typical Masterverse articulation here, so we can get some good range of motion out of him that way. Get some expressive poses out of him as far as like the rib cage kind of articulation goes. He's got a waist cut, so we can turn the waist. Although I don't really know if you really need to, since you can turn him at the upper torso like that. So that kind of, I figure I could get about all the motion out of him from that upper torso joint. I wouldn't really need to be able to turn his waist, but it's nice to have an articulation there, so I'm not complaining about it. He does have double jointed elbows with a pretty good range of motion. That's about the range of motion you're going to get out of it. Like I said, these Masterverse figures, they are kind of muscle bound, so you're not going to get like with some of those G.I. Joe figures where it's like just the forearm is parallel to the upper arm, and I can't even really do that in real life anyway. I'm not the most muscle bound guy. I wish. Leg goes up about that far, so not quite 90 degrees. Again, it's those thick thighs. That's what's doing it. So he can do the splits no problem. So he can do the splits. So like another talented actor, Jean-Claude Van Damme. So he does have a thigh cut. So his thigh rotates all the way around. He's got double jointed knees. And that's about the range of motion you get on the knees. So, pretty good. Pretty good. Get that back down. And he does have a boot cut. So the boot rotates all the way around. And he's got ankles, the rocker ankles. They point down about that far, which is about as far as I can imagine a human wanting to point their toe down anyway. And up about that far. Again, it kind of, since it's got that armored shin that oftentimes kind of prevents the ankle from going up as far as you might like, but it goes up a decent amount. So that's good. And it is a rocker ankle, so you can rotate it all the way around that way. I'm not going to rotate it all the way around because I'm not really doing it. But I think in theory, you could rotate it all the way around. We'll go ahead and do it. For you guys, I'll go ahead and rotate his ankle all the way around. How about that? So I'm definitely happy to have this guy in my collection. I had a Zodak figure that I was looking at for the longest time, and just never pulled the trigger on Zodak, and I think I missed out on him, the one that was at my local Walmart. But I found this one at a completely different Walmart, and I was like, Zodak, I'm really happy with the Classics version, even though the Masterverse version looks really cool. And I do still want to get that Zodak. Make no mistake. But I think I can get it on Amazon rather easily, and it's not any cheaper at Walmart. This was cheaper at Walmart than I'd seen it on Amazon. At least that I've seen it on Amazon. Maybe you've seen it for cheaper. I don't know. But I was really happy to have this one, and I'm happy to have the other Masterverse figure that I'm going to open up. Which one is it? You're just going to have to find out. That's going to be a future episode. So, but I think that's pretty much it for this episode. There's not a whole lot else to say about Manny Faces, except for to say that, I like this figure, and I'm glad I have him now. So, if you enjoyed this episode, please make sure you like and subscribe. All the fun YouTube stuff down below. Let me leave a comment. Let me know what you think about Manny Faces. What do you think is the best Manny Faces figure that we've had in this scale so far? Because we've had the Classics one, we've had the Club Grayskull one, and now we got the Masterverse version. And what's your favorite Manny Faces figure overall? The Origins one I thought was really good. The original one, of course, was a classic. Not Classics classic, but it's vintage classic. It's different, classic with a lowercase c. But this I think is my favorite Manny faces, at least that I've gotten in this sort of 7-inch scale. So if I'd have managed to get the original classics Manny faces, that might I might not like it as well as that one. I don't know, but since I never was able to get that one, I'm glad I was able to get this one, and I feel like he'll fit in my collection just as well that way. So that's pretty much it for this episode. Hope you enjoyed it. We will talk to you next time. Bye.